Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're doing something a little different. We're going to look at the story of a single family line, the lifelines of a woman named Angela Mary Deighton.
That's right. And we have this really rich set of genealogical data on Angela, who was born in 1956 in Bridlington, England. But our mission today is very specific. We're going to intentionally strip away most of the details you might expect.
No occupations, no stories about their lives.
Exactly. We're just using the cold, hard facts.
Yeah.
The year of birth and the location of that birth.
And why do that? What's the goal with, such a stripped-down view?
Because it lets us see something huge. It lets us trace the immense historical and geographical sweep of this one family.
We're looking backward, 4 generations from Angela, and forward, too. So it's that nearly 150 years of history.
Almost exactly, yeah. And we're seeing it all through this very specific lens of when and where each person was born.
The idea is to see how just a birth year puts you right into the middle of history, and how, for this family, one place, Yorkshire, seems to be, well, everything.
It really is. We're connecting the dots from the late Victorian era all the way up to the early 21st century.
And here's where it gets really interesting. Our starting point, this 4th generation back, is a full century before Angela was even born.
Right, so let's start there, at the foundation. Generation 4, Angela's great-grandparents. These individuals were born between roughly 1856 and 1870.
Wow, okay, so that puts them firmly in the late Victorian period.
It does. This is the peak of the British Empire, but it's also a time of, for many people, immense local stability. You didn't move unless you had to.
That span alone, 1856 to 1870, that's huge. I mean, these are people who grew up before cars, before common electricity.
And they would live to see the First World War completely reshape their world.
So let's get into the specifics, the paternal lines.
Yes, let's start there, because they immediately set up the most powerful pattern we see in this entire story. It's an incredible, almost unbreakable concentration in Yorkshire.
Okay.
The earliest birth year we have is John Hinson Usher, born around 1856 in Bridlington. His wife, Jane Alice Wales, born 7 years later in 1863, also from Bridlington.
So a tight local pairing right there. And the pattern holds.
It does. The other branch, you have Samuel Deighton, born 1869, and Anne Elizabeth Reedshaw, born 1870, both of them from Rudston, Yorkshire.
And Rudston is what, just a few miles from Bridlington?
Just a few miles inland, yes. So if you look at this cluster, Bridlington, Wudston, Beverley, Kilham, it's all packed into the East Riding of Yorkshire.
Your world would have been very small.
Extremely small. Life revolved around farming, maybe some local industry. The fact they stayed in this tiny radius tells you everything about the economic and social reality of the time.
So the rule seems to be total loyalty to East Yorkshire. But as with any good story, there has to be an exception.
And there is. This is a critical point. On the maternal side, we find a fascinating blip.
A blip.
A significant line that traces back over 150 miles west to Shropshire.
Shropshire, that's a huge departure.
A massive departure. We find Thomas Milner Hughes, born in 1858 in Meal Brace, Shropshire, and his wife Elizabeth Wilkes, born 1862 in Shrewsbury.
That's a proper journey for the 1860s. I mean, something must have pulled them over there.
Some major economic or social driver, for sure. But what's so striking is how quickly the family course corrects.
What do you mean?
Well, the rest of that maternal line immediately reconnects to that Yorkshire rule. We also find Charles Bentley, born 1859 in Beverley, Yorkshire. And his spouse, Amelia Noddle, born 1865 in Kilham, Yorkshire. And that Noddle name is important. It confirms the family is deeply embedded there from the 1860s.
So Generation 4 lays the groundwork. The world is East Yorkshire, with this one sort of temporary detour to Shropshire.
Exactly.
So the question is, does the chaos of the early 20th century at the wars finally break this local hold as we move to the next generation?
That's the perfect question as we bridge the centuries into Generation 3, Angela's grandparents. Their birth years are clustered between 1884 and 1901. So this is the generation that grew up and started their own families right on the edge of massive global conflict.
They really did straddle two different worlds, born in the quiet end of the Victorian era, but their adult lives were all about the machine age and, well, total war.
And that 17-year range of birth years is really telling. Let's follow that Shropshire line, the Hughes family.
Right.
Henry Milner Hughes, born in 1884, he still carries that Shropshire location from his parents. But look who he marries. Ethel Noddle?
Ethel Noddle, born 1890 in Kilham, Yorkshire.
Right.
So the outlier, the Shropshire line, is pulled right back into the Yorkshire cluster.
Mm-hmm.
in one generation.
It's absorbed. It's like a powerful testament to the magnetic pull of that region. Whether it's family ties, job opportunities, whatever it was, the anomaly was corrected.
And the paternal side never even left.
Never wavered. Harold Deighton, born 1898, and Evelyn Mary Usher, born 1901. Both are born and rooted firmly in Bridlington.
Harold, born in 1898. I mean, that's a perfect marker for the World War I generation. He'd have been just a teenager.
19 or 20 when the war ended, yes. His birth year placed him directly in that crucible.
So the family is geographically stable, but historically, they're right in the thick of it.
Absolutely. And that brings us to Angela's parents, Generation 2, who are born significantly later in interwar years.
Angela's mother, Constance May Hughes, was born in 1913 in Old Rome, Yorkshire. But her father, John Deighton, was born a full decade later in 1923, back in Bridlington.
And that 10-year age gap, it tells its own story.
How so?
Well, Constance, born in 1913, she lived through her childhood during the First World War. She was an adult during the Great Depression and World War II.
Right.
John, born in 23, was younger. He was just the right age for potential conscription near the end of the Second World War. They experienced that century's trauma from slightly different angles.
But they both stayed in Yorkshire.
Tethered to it. And this is the moment. This is where the story connects directly to Angela's birth in 1956. Their lives, shaped by all that conflict, set the stage for the post-war stability that her generation would know.
And her 1956 birth year puts her squarely in the baby boom, the rebuilding phase, and crucially, in the same small town, Bridlington, that had been home to her family for generations.
And now we arrive at Generation 1, Angela Mary Deighton herself, born 1956. She is, in a way, the geographical culmination of a century of this local loyalty.
And from her, we track forward into the modern era.
That's right. Our sources show 2 marriages for Angela, and the birth years of her spouses are actually quite interesting.
Okay.
Her first spouse, John Jackson, was born in 1955. So he's a contemporary, just a year older than Angela, also from the area of Buckrose, Yorkshire.
A very typical pairing for the time.
It is. But her second spouse, Brian Langton, represents a subtle generational shift. He was born earlier in 1944.
Oh, 12-year difference.
Right. So Brian was born at the end of the Second World War. He experienced the post-war recovery years as a child, while Angela was born into the more stable, confident mid-50s, a slightly different outlook.
And when we look at her children, the first descendant line, D1.
We see Angela's daughter, Melissa K. Langton, born in 1976.
Still in Bridlington, Yorkshire.
Still in Bridlington. And that 20-year gap between Angela in 56 and Melissa in 76 is a very classic, stable generational marker. It reflects the stability of that post-war family structure.
And this brings us to the most recent generation in the records.
The grandchildren, Generation D2. This takes us right into the 21st century. Melissa married Darren J. Fitzpatrick in 1998, and they have 2 children.
The first, TMA Ann Fitzpatrick, was born in 2002, and she was born...
Still in Bridlington.
Still in Bridlington.
Not but then.
Then we find the second child, Madison Mary Fitzpatrick, born in 2004, and she was born in Wakefield, West Yorkshire.
And that little detail, that one piece of data, feels huge. It's incredibly significant. For 148 years, from 1856 to 2002, this entire family line was almost exclusively confined to the East Riding of Yorkshire.
With that one brief trip to Shropshire.
Which was corrected within a generation. The birth of Madison in Wakefield in West Yorkshire, that suggests the first true, sustained geographical break in the family's modern history.
So when you step back and look at it all, what's the big takeaway? We've traced this 148-year line just using birth years.
I think the takeaway is that incredible geographical continuity. For more than a century, almost every major life event we can track happens in the same few square miles of Yorkshire.
That Hughes line was the great exception.
It was, but the geographical magnet of East Yorkshire just pulled the family right back. The move to Wakefield in 2004, a different part of the county, but still a different city. That might be the first real modern economic migration for this family.
It raises that question, what forces allowed that loyalty to a place to last for so long? And what modern forces finally broke it?
Precisely.
So for you, the listener, who's now an expert on Angela's ancestral line, we saw that distinctive name, Nodal, show up in Generation 4 with Amelia Nodal, born 1865, and again in Generation 3 with Ethel Nodal, born 1890, both from Kelham, Yorkshire. As you look at your own family history, what does it take for a lineage, one that has spanned over a century and a half through world wars and massive social change, to keep such incredibly strong ties to one single tiny corner of the globe?
It's like holding a compass that was stuck pointing toward Bridlington for 148 years.
Something to mull over as you explore the history of your own place.